I used to sail across oceans. I survived 2 storms in the Pacific. But now I have to stop halfway up just 28 steps because my legs no longer obey me. That is what Richard Carson told me. He is 81 years old, a retired Navy engineer who once built ships that conquered waves taller than most buildings. These days, he lives in a quiet coastal town in Florida. His mornings used to begin with a plate of fresh fruit and a peaceful walk down the wooden pier toward the water. But lately, those simple walks have turned into small battles. His ankles swell. His knees ache with a deep, dragging weight. There was no fall, no accident, just a quiet surrender from the very legs that carried him across the world. When doctors found nothing wrong, Richard started to question what he was feeding his body. That is when he saw the pattern. The fruit he had trusted for decades, the same fruit praised in every health magazine and TV ad, could have been slowly eating away at his strength. If you have ever felt your knees getting heavier by the afternoon, if standing up feels more like lifting weights than rising to your feet, this may be your moment to pause and listen. In the next few minutes, I will walk you through 7 common fruits. They may seem harmless. They may even seem helpful. But for aging bodies, they can quietly stiffen joints, drain balance, and weaken the legs you rely on most. And here is the good news. I will also show you the fruits that actually support your mobility, reduce inflammation, and help your legs feel lighter and stronger each day. You will learn how to adjust, not avoid. How to enjoy fruit again without letting it chip away at your freedom. But before we get to the fruits themselves, there is something we need to understand together. After 60, your body no longer handles food the way it used to. What once fueled you may now inflame you. And if you have always believed that fruit can never hurt you, maybe it is time we take a closer look. Just for a moment, just for your legs. A fruit that once saved you at 30 might slowly harm you at 70. That is a hard thing to accept, especially when you have always believed in eating clean. Especially when you have spent your whole life trusting nature more than medicine. But the truth is, your body has changed. And what used to heal may now begin to hurt, slowly, quietly, without warning. You see, after 60, your blood vessels are no longer as flexible or as strong. The tiny capillaries in your legs and joints do not carry oxygen and nutrients the way they used to. Your metabolism slows down. Your body becomes more sensitive to sugar spikes. Inflammation, which was once kept in check, now finds more chances to flare up. Not all at once, just little by little. A bit more stiffness in the knees after lunch. A dull ache in the calves after a short walk. A tightness in the hips when you wake up. Richard had never thought fruit could hurt him. He used to tell his grandchildren that fruit is always better than candy. And maybe back then it was. But recently something changed. He noticed that whenever he had a bowl of sweet fruit before bed, bananas, grapes, even watermelon, he would wake up feeling swollen, stiff, heavy. At first he blamed the weather, then his shoes, then the mattress. Until one day, his doctor handed him a quiet little printout. It was a study from the National Institute on Aging. It showed that more than 60% of older adults experienced increased inflammation after regularly eating fruits with a high glycemic index, fruits that spike blood sugar quickly. Richard looked down at the fruits on that list. They were the same ones he had proudly eaten for decades, the same ones he thought were helping him stay young. The mistake many of us make is thinking that natural means harmless. But nature changes just like we do. And what matters now is not what was once good, but what is right for this chapter of your life. It is not about fear. It is about awareness, about honoring your body as it is, not as it was. So if even the healthiest looking fruit can cause harm when the body changes, what does that say about the fruits we eat every day without question? Let's begin with the one that is praised for fighting inflammation, yet may be quietly feeding the very pain we are trying to avoid. Bromelain helps digestion, but it might also be fueling a quiet fire in your knees. Pineapple is bright, juicy, tropical. It feels like a reward from nature. For years, Richard ate a few chunks every morning with his breakfast. He had heard it helped digestion, that it was good for inflammation. And to be fair, that is not entirely wrong. Pineapple contains bromelain, an enzyme that can help break down food in the stomach. But what most people do not realize is that bromelain is just one part of the story. Pineapple also comes loaded with natural sugars and strong fruit acids. And when you combine that with aging blood vessels and slower circulation, it becomes a different story entirely. You see, after 60, your smallest blood vessels lose their strength. They become less elastic and more prone to irritation. Now imagine adding acid and sugar into that weakened system every morning. Your body responds the only way it knows how. It becomes inflamed, joints swell, ankles puff up, and pain settles in slowly like a fog. Richard had no idea pineapple was making things worse. But on a whim, he decided to stop eating it for 10 days. That is all, no other change. By day 4, the swelling in his ankles had gone down. By day 7, the stiffness in his knees had softened. And on day 10, for the first time in weeks, he could walk down the pier without feeling like his legs were dragging weights behind him. The danger of pineapple is not just in what it contains, but in how silently it works. There are no instant side effects, no sudden alarms, but the inflammation it stirs up can build over weeks and months until the pain becomes your new normal. Worse yet, if you are taking blood thinners or anticoagulant medications, bromelain can interfere and either increase or reduce the effects of those drugs. Not many people are told this, and that is what makes it so risky. So what about other fruits that also seem healthy but may be tricking your body in a similar way? Let's take a look at the one almost every senior eats for energy and muscle cramps. It is soft, sweet, and full of potassium. But is it actually helping your legs stay strong, or is it quietly wearing them down? A morning banana might weigh down your legs for the rest of the afternoon. That is what Richard realized one slow Tuesday. He had just finished his usual breakfast, a slice of toast, a cup of tea, and one perfectly ripe banana. It was the same routine he had followed for years, but by early afternoon his legs felt heavy. His ankles had that soft swelling again. There was a tightness in his calves, almost like his socks were on too tight, even though he was barefoot. He had not walked far. He had not strained anything. But still, the weight in his lower body lingered. The thing about bananas is they are tricky. They are rich in potassium, and that makes them sound like the perfect fruit for older adults who struggle with muscle cramps or fatigue. But potassium alone is not the whole story. Bananas also have a high glycemic index and are packed with fast-absorbing carbohydrates. For someone over 60, this means one banana can quickly spike blood sugar, then trigger a sharp insulin response. And when insulin spikes often, the body starts holding onto water. That extra water shows up in the worst places: swollen ankles, stiff fingers, bloated stomachs. Richard had always eaten bananas to avoid leg cramps, but no one told him they could also be causing the very swelling he was trying to reduce. The mistake many make is thinking that because something helps one part of the body, it must help all parts. That is not always true, especially when your circulation has slowed and your body no longer clears sugar the way it used to. Bananas are gentle in taste, but not always gentle in impact. And for those with heart conditions or on certain medications, the fluid retention can become more than just uncomfortable, it can be risky. There are alternatives. Avocados, for example, are also rich in potassium. But unlike bananas, they do not cause sharp blood sugar spikes. They provide steady energy, healthy fats, and actually help reduce inflammation instead of feeding it. One small switch can turn your breakfast into a support system instead of a silent setback. So what about those little fruits that seem so innocent you snack on them by the handful? They are small, juicy, and often labeled heart-healthy, but they may be quietly fueling inflammation in your joints more than you realize. Let's take a closer look. That pain in your big toe at 2 a.m. might have started with a handful of grapes you ate at 7 p.m. It sounds dramatic, but Richard would tell you it is not. It had happened to him. He was woken by a sharp sting in the joint at the base of his big toe. No swelling earlier. No warning signs. Just sudden pain, hot and stubborn, like someone had dropped a coal beneath his skin. He sat on the edge of the bed, confused, trying to stretch, trying to walk it off. And then he remembered. The night before, he had eaten a bowl of grapes while watching the news. They were cold and sweet and easy to pop in, one after another like nothing. What most people do not realize is that grapes, though small and refreshing, are packed with fructose. That is a natural sugar, yes, but when consumed in high amounts, it does not pass through the body cleanly. It heads straight to the liver, where it gets broken down into uric acid. And when uric acid builds up, it settles in the joints, especially the small ones, especially at night. The Journal of the American Medical Association found that consuming more than 30 grams of fructose per day increased uric acid levels by 62%. That is a big shift. And if you think about how many grapes it takes to reach that level, it is not much. A couple of handfuls, a bowl during your favorite TV show. The mistake is thinking that a little fruit can do no harm. But little fruits add up quickly. Grapes are easy to eat in large amounts because they feel light. You do not feel full. You feel healthy. But inside your joints, something very different might be happening. The fructose piles up. The uric acid builds. The inflammation starts first in the toes, then the knees, sometimes even in the hips or shoulders. Richard had never connected his foot pain to grapes until he stopped eating them for a week. The pain faded. His sleep improved. And the next time he reached for grapes, he paused. There is no need to fear fruit, but there is a need to understand it, especially now when your body is more sensitive, more reactive, and less forgiving of the things that used to pass unnoticed. So what if the fruit that feels like hydration could be hiding the next surprise? It is pink, refreshing, full of water. But could it be acting more like sugar than you think? Let's explore next. It feels like water, but your body handles it like cake. That is the hidden side of watermelon. Richard used to love his midday slices, especially in summer. Cold, crisp, sweet. It felt like the perfect way to cool down after a walk. But lately, something strange had been happening. Every afternoon after eating watermelon, his knees felt heavy. His legs ached. There was this tiredness in his lower body, like the muscles were being asked to carry just a little more weight than they should. He tried resting more, walking less, even elevating his feet, but nothing seemed to help. Until he looked at what he was eating. Watermelon seems innocent because it is mostly water, but hidden beneath that refreshing taste is a surprisingly high glycemic index, a GI of 72 to be exact. That means it raises your blood sugar almost as quickly as candy. And for someone over 60, whose insulin response is slower and more unstable, that sugar spike can cause inflammation to flare up in places you would never suspect. The tissues around your knees, the joints in your ankles, even the muscles in your thighs. Richard realized that what felt like a treat was quietly putting stress on the very parts of his body he was trying to protect. The mistake many make is assuming that if something is watery, it must be hydrating. But not all hydration is equal. Watermelon tricks the senses. It cools the mouth but heats the joints. Because the sugar acts fast, the inflammation comes quietly. No warning signs, just a dull ache that grows stronger over time. A fruit meant to refresh may end up making your legs feel slower, your steps more uncertain, and your afternoons more uncomfortable. There are better choices. If you are looking for hydration without the sugar spike, reach for sliced cucumber or unsweetened coconut water. They soothe the body instead of stressing it. They support your joints instead of inflaming them. One small switch at lunch can mean lighter legs by evening. And what about the fruit we all think of as a symbol of health? Bright, packed with vitamin C, always present at breakfast. It may smell like wellness, but it could be quietly irritating your joints from the inside out. Let's look closer next. You think oranges help you feel healthier, but they might be the reason your knees feel stiff when you step out of bed. That was the thought running through Richard's mind one cold morning in January. He had just swung his legs over the bed, ready to start his usual walk down to the boardwalk, when he noticed the tightness again. His knees were slow, his hips reluctant. It took a few deep breaths and some slow stretches before he could even make it to the kitchen. And there it was on the counter like every day before, a glass of orange juice. Fresh, bright, trusted. But that morning, Richard wondered if what he thought was helping might be quietly hurting. Oranges are famous for vitamin C. That is why so many seniors drink a glass first thing in the morning. But hidden behind that citrus glow is a combination your joints may not love: citric acid and natural fructose. On an empty stomach, that combination can trigger inflammatory reactions, especially in bodies where the gut lining is more fragile and the joints already feel the strain of time. One small glass of orange juice has the equivalent of 3 teaspoons of sugar. It does not taste that way, but your blood sugar knows. It responds quickly. And when it does, your joints are the first to feel the aftermath: swelling, stiffness, that dragging ache just as the day begins. The mistake is thinking that a natural vitamin always brings natural benefits, but context matters. So does timing. Richard had been drinking orange juice every morning for years. It felt like a ritual of wellness. But after switching to berries and kiwi, something changed. Mornings became easier. His knees no longer protested at dawn. And slowly, the stiffness that once felt inevitable began to fade. There are gentler ways to get vitamin C. Kiwi, blueberries, strawberries. They offer the same immune support without the acidic overload. They are easier on digestion and kinder to circulation. One smart swap can mean the difference between dreading the first step of the day or greeting it with ease. So what about that crisp green fruit that feels clean, low sugar, safe? It might be the most surprising of them all. Let's uncover the truth in the next section. You eat apples to stay lean, but no one ever warned you they might be the reason your legs ache at night. Richard found this out the hard way. For weeks, he had been swapping out desserts for a green apple after dinner. It was crisp, sour, and made him feel like he was doing the right thing for his body. But then came the nights. He started waking up around 2 or 3 a.m. with a strange tension in his calves, a subtle ache in his hips, sometimes even a tingling heat in the soles of his feet. At first, he blamed the mattress, then the weather. Until one night he skipped the apple, and the pain never came. Green apples seem harmless, low in sugar, light, a perfect snack. But what hides inside is malic acid, the very compound that gives them their signature tartness. In younger bodies, malic acid helps stimulate energy production. But in aging joints and softer tissue, it can act like a quiet irritant. It slips past the stomach and into the bloodstream, where it finds its way to already sensitive areas: the knees, the ankles, the hips. Especially when eaten raw and close to bedtime, it has nowhere to go, and the result is subtle inflammation that can ruin your sleep without warning. The mistake is thinking that if a food feels light, it must be light on the body. But acid has weight, and your joints feel it. Many seniors eat green apples as a night snack to avoid sugar, but sugar is not the only enemy. Richard now chooses red apples, softer, sweeter, and more balanced in their acid profile. And when he adds a thin layer of peanut butter, the fat helps buffer the acid even more, slowing digestion and reducing irritation. No more tension at midnight. No more restless legs after a healthy meal. Sometimes it is not about removing fruit entirely. It is about knowing which version of that fruit your body can now handle. The one that serves you, not stresses you. The one that supports sleep, not interrupts it. And what about the fruit that feels like candy in disguise, soft, golden, dripping with sweetness? It may be nature's dessert, but it could be your joint's biggest regret. Let's uncover it next. It's as sweet as candy, and for your joints, it might hurt just as much. Richard used to love mangoes. They reminded him of summer, of simpler days when dessert came from a tree instead of a box. But lately, the mornings after a mango-filled evening had been different. His fingers felt tight. His ankles swelled slightly, enough to make his favorite shoes a little snug. It was subtle but growing. At first, he dismissed it. Just age, he told himself, until his doctor showed him the numbers. One large mango packs about 45 grams of natural sugar. That is not a snack, that is a sugar surge. And for a body over 70, already struggling to regulate insulin, that rush becomes a spark that lights up soft tissue with inflammation. Mango may look like nature's treat, but your body processes it no differently than candy when it comes to blood sugar. The spike in insulin can trigger a cascade of effects: swelling in small joints, stiffness in the morning, a dull ache in the toes, and even a tingling pressure around the ankles. For someone with sensitive nerves or early signs of neuropathy, that sugar rush is like pouring fuel on a quiet flame. You may not notice it after one fruit, but day after day, it builds. And one morning, you wake up and realize your hands are slower, your steps heavier, and the strength you once had is slipping. The mistake is thinking that natural sweetness is always safe. But your bloodstream does not care where the sugar comes from, only how fast and how much. Richard made a small switch. He replaced mango with ripe papaya, still tropical, still satisfying, but gentler on digestion and far lower in sugar. And more importantly, his morning stiffness began to fade. His hands opened more easily. His legs no longer felt like weights after breakfast. It was a simple trade. One that bought him more movement, more freedom, and more comfort with every step. Sometimes, healing begins not with doing more, but with doing less of what quietly hurts you, choosing what loves your body back. Now that you know which fruits could be silently working against you, let's shift focus to the good news. There are fruits that protect your joints, strengthen your legs, and support your body through aging. Let's explore those next together. You don't have to give up fruit to keep your freedom. You just have to choose the right ones. That's what Richard finally realized after quietly staring at his breakfast table, wondering why the foods he had trusted for decades were now leaving him more tired than nourished. Instead of cutting fruit out completely, he simply began to choose them differently. Berries like blueberries and raspberries became his daily companions, small, gentle warriors against inflammation that helped stabilize his insulin and soothe his blood vessels. Cherries in moderation brought down his uric acid and calmed the fear of sudden joint pain. Creamy avocados, rich in healthy fats, eased his knees and quietly strengthened his heart. And soft, ripe fruits like papaya and pear, easy to digest and kind to aging joints, became the comfort he looked forward to each morning. He also changed how he ate. No more fruit on an empty stomach. Now he enjoys small portions after meals, paired with a little protein or fat, maybe a spoon of cottage cheese, a handful of almonds, or a slice of whole grain toast. That tiny shift stopped the blood sugar spikes, reduced the swelling in his ankles, and soon his legs began to respond. Not with pain, but with steadiness, with calm balance. With that quiet kind of strength that lets him walk freely without worrying whether a cane might be needed tomorrow. It doesn't take a strict diet or a dramatic change, just a little more care, a little more patience, a little more trust in your body's quiet wisdom. Because when you choose the right fruits now, they become your gentle allies, helping you stand tall, move freely, and stay independent for the years still to come. If you've made it this far with me, it tells me something about you. You care deeply about your strength, your health, and your future. So just start small. Look again at the fruits you eat each week. Try removing just one. Give your body the space to respond. And then notice what shifts. Maybe your legs feel lighter, maybe sleep comes easier, or maybe mornings feel just a little less stiff. If this message opened your eyes or gave you something to think about, leave a comment below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. If this helped you, please tap the like button. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the insights that could change the way you age, one gentle step at a time. Remember, don't trade your independence for something that tastes sweet but quietly takes your strength.